Hey, so I just wanted to record a quick preview for this book that I have just decided that I want to read. It's called Inner Work by Robert A. Johnson. And this book, actually, I just kind of found it in our closet. Brian, my husband, he was given it by a coworker of his at an old job. A coworker just gave him this book and a couple other ones. I hadn't read it yet, and so I started reading it. And it's really interesting, and it's really well written, and I thought that it has some important points to it. It's called Inner Work, again. The subtitle is Using Dreams and Active Imagination for Personal Growth. So this is really awesome because he is a student, Robert Johnson was a student of Carl Jung, the psychologist, and he did a lot of dream work, and I have always been so interested in dreams and dream interpretation and the dream realm and what do they mean and what is it that we're doing while we're asleep, and I just want to know so much more about that than it seems like we have access to or information on at this stage. And so I think this is a great book because so far it teaches you more about the subconscious or the unconscious mind and in connection with the conscious mind, and how through active imagination and dream work, you actually have a place to do some real digging and work about finding who you are internally, melding the fragmented parts of yourself, and a lot of cool stuff like that. So I'll go into, I guess maybe I'll read the back and kind of, let's see if there's an introduction. There is an introduction here. Let's see if I can read that all in this video. We'll try it out. So, Inner Work, it says, in his groundbreaking works, He, She, and We, and those are all three different books, I believe. Yeah. He is subtitled Understanding Masculine Psychology, She is Understanding Feminine Psychology, and We is Understanding the Psychology of Romantic Love. So those are three of his other books. Pioneering Jungian analyst Robert Johnson showed us how to better understand each other using mythic archetypes. In Inner Work, he provides a 4-step way to bring our conscious and unconscious selves together, immeasurably enriching our life experience. Providing an understanding of dream symbols and images, Johnson leads us through a ceremony that translates the dream into a memorable physical experience. Working with the power of the active imagination, we begin to develop a relationship between the conscious and unconscious minds, resulting in what is often a central, transformative experience. Through Inner Work, this direct, powerful way of approaching the inner world of the unconscious, our dreams and imagination can be transformed into an active, creative part of our lives. Robert Johnson enables us to search the hidden depths of our own unconscious to find the extraordinary strengths and resources that wait to be discovered there. And here's the book. Let me see how much of the intro I can get through before I go pick up my hubby wubby from work and walk these dogs. Okay. Introduction, the unconscious and its language. First section is titled Waking Up to the Unconscious. One morning, a woman got into her car, as usual, and drove several miles to her office. Along the way, her imagination began to produce a great adventure. She always saw herself in olden times, a simple woman living in the midst of wars and crusades. She became a heroine, saved her people by strength and sacrifice, encountered a strong and noble prince who loved her. With her conscious mind thus totally occupied, she drove along several streets, stopped at traffic lights, signaled properly at each turn, and arrived safely at her office parking lot. Coming to her senses, she realized that she couldn't remember any of the drive to the office. She recalled not a single intersection or turn. Her startled mind asked, how could I drive this far without being aware of it? Where was my mind? Who was driving while I was dreaming? But things like that had happened before, so she dropped the subject and went on into the office. At her desk, she began to plan her day's work, but she was interrupted by a colleague who came storming into her office, threw down a memorandum she had circulated, and went into a rage over some minor point he disagreed with. She was astonished. His anger was so disproportionate to the size of the issue. What had come over him? He, in turn, hearing his own raised voice, realized he was making a mountain out of a molehill. Embarrassed, he mumbled an apology and backed out. In his own office, he asked himself, what came over me? Sorry, he probably said, what came over me? Where did that come from? I don't usually get rattled over little things. I just wasn't myself. He sensed that there was a boiling anger within him that had nothing to do with his friend's memorandum, but had suddenly come to the surface over this petty matter. Where the anger came from, he didn't know. If these two people had time to think about it, they might realize that they had already felt the presence of the unconscious in their lives that morning. In dozens of ways, in the ebb and flow of ordinary daily life, we experience the unconscious as it acts in us and through us. Sometimes it works alongside the conscious mind and takes over the controls of the automobile while the conscious mind is focused on something else. We have all had the experience of driving the flute blocks on automatic pilot. As the woman in our example did, the conscious mind is somewhere else, briefly, and the unconscious mind simply takes over whatever we are doing. It stops us at the red lights, starts us at the green lights, and keeps us within the law until the conscious mind comes back to the here and now. This isn't the safest way to drive, but the unconscious does provide us with an excellent and crucial built-in backup system that we all take for granted. Sometimes the unconscious generates a fantasy so full of vivid symbolic images that it captures the conscious mind totally and holds our attention for a long time. The fantasy of adventure, danger, heroic sacrifice, and love that enthralled the woman on her way to work is a primary example of the way the unconscious invades our conscious minds and attempts to express itself through the imagination, using the symbolic language of feeling charged images. I think it's important, feeling charged images. Another way we experience the unconscious is through a sudden urge of emotion, the inexplicable joy or the irrational anger that suddenly invades the conscious mind and takes it over. The floods of feeling make no sense to the conscious mind because the conscious mind did not produce them. The man in our example could not explain to himself the intensity of his reaction. He asked, where did that come from? He felt that his anger came from somewhere outside of him. He felt that his anger came, from somewhere outside of him. He felt that he was not himself for a few moments. Well, let me read that all together for you just real quick. He asked, where did that come from? He felt that his anger came from somewhere outside of him. He felt that he was not himself for a few moments. But in fact, this surge of ungovernable emotion did come from a part of him, a place deep within that he couldn't see with his conscious mind. It is because of this invisibility that this place within us is called the unconscious. The idea of the unconscious derives from a simple observation in daily human life. There is material contained in our minds that we are not aware of most of the time. We sometimes become aware of a memory, a pleasant association, an ideal, a belief that wells up unexpectedly from an unknown place. We sense that we have carried these elements somewhere inside of us for a long time. But where? In an unknown part of the total psyche that lies outside the boundaries of the conscious mind. The unconscious is a marvelous universe of unseen energies, forces, forms of intelligence, even distinct personalities that live within us. Isn't that crazy? Sorry, I shouldn't say crazy. Isn't that fascinating? It is a much larger realm than most of us realize. One that has a complete life of its own, running parallel to the ordinary one that is, sorry, my doggy distracted me. You walked by me. Let me read that again. It is a much larger realm than most of us realize, one that has a complete life of its own, running parallel to the ordinary life we live day to day. The unconscious is the secret source of much of our thought, feeling, and behavior. It influences us in ways that are all the more powerful because unsuspected. Most of us have an intuitive feeling about what is meant when we hear the term unconscious. We correlate this idea with the myriads of experiences, small and large, that were interwoven with the fabric of our daily lives. We all have had the experience of doing something unconsciously when our minds were someplace else, then being surprised at what we had done. We remember getting worked up during a conversation and blurting out some strong opinion we didn't know consciously that we held. Sometimes we're startled. Where did that come from? I didn't know I felt so strongly about that. As we become more sensitive to the surges of energy from the unconscious, we learn instead to ask, what part of me believes that? Why does this subject set off such an intense reaction in that unseen part of myself? We can learn to look at the issue more closely. What comes over me is a sudden invasion of energy from the unconscious. If I think I wasn't being myself, in quotes, it is because I don't realize that myself also includes my unconscious. These hidden parts of ourselves have strong feelings and want to express them. Yet, unless we learn to do inner work, the title of this book, these parts of ourselves are hidden from our conscious view. Sometimes these hidden personalities are embarrassing or violent, and we are humiliated when they show themselves. At other times we wake up to strengths and find qualities. At other times we wake up to strengths and find qualities within ourselves that we never knew were there. We draw on hidden resources and do things we normally could not have done, say something more clear and intelligent than we've ever been able to say before, express wisdom we did not know we had, show a generosity or understanding of which we never knew we were capable. So I think that's important to know here, is that the unconscious is just as equally a ocean of unintegrated parts of ourselves that are, we could say, positive or negative. So just as much as you can well up with anger, you can well up with some sort of an inspiration of an idea to go ahead and draw a painting that you never really knew you were an artist, and that's all of those potentials, every potential that exists, I believe, in this time-space reality, or in God's source that surrounds us in this experience, is in that unconscious, because we are everyone and everything simultaneously. Our inner world, which connects to that source, is everything and everyone simultaneously. So there are aspects of ourselves that we have not integrated or understood, and that's when something wells up and we're like, that wasn't me. Well, it's something that's in my unconscious or subconscious that I'm getting from what surrounds me that is unseen. I don't know if I think I might have confused two concepts or made it confusing, but let's read on and see if there's more clarity on there. But that's kind of what I'm grasping, is that within us lies so many potential realities or versions of ourselves that we just don't act upon on a conscious level, because we're like, okay, I am this person on a conscious level, so I would not say this. And then when something happens for some reason and we say this, we're like, who was that? But it really is you. But your subconscious, that you don't realize that you're not in control of consciously, just pulled up something that you're this, where did that even come from? It could come from programming that you've had for a long time, family, environment, education system, TV, movies. A lot of things are just seeping in there in this unconscious, and all of a sudden it just pops out. So this is going to teach us more about how to control it and how to understand it. Let me see, how am I on time? Oh, there's a lot more left. Let's do it. Sometimes these hidden personalities, I've already read all that. are embarrassing or violent and are humiliated. We're humiliated when we show them, blah, blah, blah. Down here to the positive side, you can tap into hidden resources, things you couldn't normally have done, say things more clear and intelligent than you've said before, express wisdom, generosity, understanding, all of these wonderful things. Oh, and here he goes. In each case, there is a startled reaction. I am a different person than I thought I was. I have qualities, both positive and negative, that I didn't know were part of my definition. These qualities lived in the unconscious where they were out of sight, out of mind. End quote. We are all much more than the I of whom we are aware. Our conscious minds can focus on only a limited sector of our total being at any given time. Despite our efforts at self-knowledge, only a small portion of the huge energy system of the unconscious can be incorporated into the conscious mind or function at the conscious level. Therefore, we have to learn how to go to the unconscious and become receptive to its messages. It is the only way to find the unknown parts of ourselves. Next section is headed Approaching the Unconscious, Voluntarily or Involuntarily. The unconscious manifests itself through a language of symbols. It is not only in our involuntary or compulsive behavior that we can see the unconscious. It has two natural pathways for bridging the gap and speaking to the conscious mind. One is by dreams, the other is through the imagination. Both of these are highly refined channels of communication that the psyche has developed so that the unconscious and conscious levels may speak to one another and work together. The unconscious has developed a special language to use in dreams and imagination. It's the language of symbolism. As we will see, inner work is primarily the art of learning this symbolic language of the unconscious. Therefore, we will devote most of our time to working with dreams, imagination, and the uses of symbolism. Many communicative efforts by the unconscious are lost on us. The unconscious bubbles to the surface in dreams, but few people have the information necessary to take their dreams seriously and understand their language. The activity of the unconscious is also evident in the running of the imagination, the bursts of fantasy that float like bubbles across the landscape of the conscious mind, barely noticed by us, the veritable floods of fantasy that seize many people regularly and run like rivers along the edges of their minds. It's getting a little poetic. I like how he says that. We think we are thinking, or we think we are planning, but more often we are in a daydream, lost for a few minutes in that stream of fantasy before we pull ourselves back to the physical situation, the work at hand, the persons with whom we are speaking. To get a true sense of who we are, become more complete and integrated. To get a true sense of who we are, become more complete and integrated human beings, we must go to the unconscious and set up communication with it. Much of ourselves and many determinants of our character are contained in the unconscious. It is only by approaching it that we have a chance to become conscious, complete, whole human beings. Jung has shown that by approaching the unconscious, talking about Carl Jung, psychologist, Jung has shown that by approaching the unconscious and learning its symbolic language, we live richer and fuller lives. We begin to live in partnership with the unconscious rather than at its mercy or in constant warfare with it. Most people, however, do not approach the unconscious voluntarily. They only become aware of the unconscious when they get into trouble with it. We modern people are so out of touch with the inner world that we encounter it mostly through psychological distress. For example, a woman who thinks she has everything under control may find herself horribly depressed, able neither to shake it off nor to understand what is happening to her. Or a man may find that he has terrible conflicts between the life he lives outwardly and the unconscious ideals he holds deep inside of himself where he never looks. He feels torn or anxiety-ridden but he can't say why. I think this is so important here because we're living in a society where depression has become a norm, a thing that people adopt into their vocabulary as if it's a normal state of being. It's become more normalized, when instead we can explore the different facets of ourselves, happy, sad, ecstatic, mad, and understand it, and understand what the underlying causes of them are, and then learn how to get to a place of just being okay, to pulling out and being the observer of situations as they come and go in our experience, and we just observe them, and the situations just pass through us instead of happening to us, and so heavily impacting our state of mind to where we claim the title of depression, which is then clinical, which is then a medical thing, which is then all of these other things, when it's really just a state, a temporary state of being that exists. The potential for it exists within each and every one of us, but some of us are more prone to exploring it because of whatever that may be. And these things, understanding the unconscious, the psyche, who we are, and why we are the way we are, we can learn to not be so affected by those things. And this other one is a huge one. The man who finds he's in terrible conflict within the life he is publicly and the one he is privately. That's huge, because we're society, we're telling us how we should act, how we should think, how we should behave. And so many people out there are clones of each other, but they're not. So that's how I know, because each of us is a unique and brilliant and vibrant and beautiful being of this planet and this experience. We each have something so unique and wonderful to share. Yet I look around and there's so many replicas that you would see people going around as if we're all the same, or as if they were all the same. We're being fit into a mold. Even in our everyday lives, whether it's not just like a media influence of like a Kardashian type mindset or whatever, it could be just as like businessman. We take on that title and lose ourselves, our unique individuality. So we need to spend more time learning about ourselves, our power over our mind, through learning about our mind, our power to escape from this label-driven society, and learning to explore our infinite possibilities, I think, is the key. So, moving on. When we experience inexplicable conflicts that we can't resolve, when we become aware of urges in ourselves that seem irrational, primitive, or destructive, when a neurosis afflicts us because our conscious attitudes are at odds with our instinctual selves, then we begin to realize that the unconscious is playing a role in our lives, and we need to face it, face the unconscious. Historically, it was through this kind of pathology that Jung and Freud rediscovered the existence of the unconscious, through the psychological suffering of patients in whom the relationship between the conscious and unconscious levels had been broken down. The next section, Jung's model of the unconscious. Jung discovered that the unconscious is not merely an appendage of the conscious mind, a place where forgotten memories or unpleasant feelings are repressed. He posited a model of the unconscious so momentous that the Western world has still not fully caught up with its implications. He showed that the unconscious is the creative source of all that evolves into the conscious mind and into the total personality of each individual. It is out of the raw material of the unconscious that our conscious minds develop, mature, and expand to include all the qualities that we carry potentially within us. So I think I was on the right track with this whole. The unconscious is the realm of potentiality, and the conscious mind is the expression of the potentials which you choose to embody on your unique journey. So I think this reminds me of that story by Jerry and Esther Hicks in the Ask and It Is Given, the book Ask and It Is Given, which is a fantastic book about coming into a place of your emotional guidance system, coming into control of your emotions, which control which are magnetic. So our emotions are magnetic, our thoughts are electric, thoughts send out frequency of vibration, electric signals, but our emotions connected with our thoughts become the magnetic point of attraction, which pulls in different opportunities, experiences, or blocks in our life. So anyways, in Asking It Is Given, they give a great example of life as being a huge, huge state-of-the-art kitchen or pantry for a chef, and you are top chef. You know how to whip up anything you want, and there is every single ingredient everywhere around you that you could possibly have from every single location on this planet. Everything you need right there, fresh, delicious, vibrant, but everything isn't for you, right? So if you're making a pie, you're creating your dish of your pie, they say that you can pull whatever ingredients you want off these shelves to make your unique pie. That's going to be perfect for you. But there's ingredients there that you wouldn't necessarily want in your pie. Someone else might like those wet berries and the little tapenade or whatever that you put on there, and you might be like, ugh, no, I just want a regular cheesecake or a pumpkin pie, whatever it is. But the point is, you don't sit there saying, oh, this freaking kitchen is horrible, let me get rid of all these ingredients that I don't want and toss them out of here because they're ruining my potential to create my pie. No, what you do is you focus on the ingredients that you want, that are going to help you to create your beautiful manifestation of the perfect pie. You have all of these potentialities. You can create several different pies. You can create whatever you want, but don't focus on the ingredients that are not for you. Focus on the ingredients that are your unique thing. And that's, I think, what individuality is, or what our purpose here is, to step into our individuality, because we all are one and we all are source, but we are here to express the divine in our own unique ways and add to this experience in our own unique ways. So we're all here to pick our own ingredients from the limitless potentiality of the unconscious storehouse. But when we accidentally tap into some rotten tomatoes and we throw that out there into the universe, we say, wait a minute, that doesn't go in my pie. And we focus on the fact, why did I pull the rotten tomatoes? Why did I do that? It's not, this is going to teach us how to explore this infinite storehouse and how to pick and understand that we are every single ingredient. You have to accept that and know it, but then you can create your pie based on what you're deliberately choosing and not reactionally going through this battle of saying, hey, where did that come from? Everything's there. Everything's there. The potential for everything is there, always. You just have to learn how to control yourself in that great divine kitchen that is life. Excuse me. So let me go back into this. Jung showed us that the conscious and the unconscious minds both have critical roles to play in the equilibrium of the total self. When they are out of correct balance with one another, neurosis or other disturbances result. The evolution of consciousness is the next section. Jung's studies and work led him to conclude that the unconscious is the real source of all our human consciousness. It is the source of our human capacity for orderly thought, reasoning, human awareness, and feeling. The unconscious is the original mind. Sorry, that's not quotes, it's caps. The original mind. The Om, God force. I think it's interesting that it says original mind in caps. The unconscious is the original mind of humankind, the primal matrix out of which our species has evolved a conscious mind and then developed it over the millennia to the extent and the refinement that it has today. Every capacity, every feature of our functioning consciousness was first contained in the unconscious and then found its way from there up to the conscious level. Jung developed a magnificent vision of this human capacity for consciousness, of its role and meaning. He saw a creative force at work in nature, a cosmos laboring through timeless eons to give birth to this rare quality that we call consciousness. through the human race, the huge unconscious psyche of nature,